Okay, this meeting of the House Environmental Committee will now come to order. Evan, will you take the roll?
Vitale,
Present.
Brown,
Designation.
Fleming,
Designation.
Owenstein,
We'll give him the designation.
Isaacson,
Designation.
Kazim,
We'll give Carol a designation.
Aten,
Designation.
Pielli, Rivera, Salisbury, Siegel,
Designation.
Steele,
Designation.
Takak,
Designation.
Webster. Rader,
Here.
Bashline,
Designation,
Day,
Gary.
Flick, James, Mahaffey, Pugh, Schmidt, Schaefer,
Designation,
Stender, Twardzik,
designation.
Wentling.
Okay. Rep. Webster, one of our representatives from the military, would you lead us in the pledge? Okay. For the interests of the members and those in the audience, we will be over House Bill 43 by Rep. Conklin and House Bill 586 by Rep. Friel today. We have a number of other items, nothing too challenging, but before we begin, Chairman Rader, would you like to say any opening remarks?
I didn't prepare any. My secretary should have done that for me. I'm just happy to be here, and this is our first real meeting, and I think things will go, I think, appropriately, because we all get along, right? So
We do.
this should be very interesting.
So
Hopefully
far.
accomplish a lot. Yeah, so far, right. The day's not over. I think we'll accomplish a lot here, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Okay. The first item is a re-referral. It's House Bill 783 by Rep. Rabb, which touches on the issue of greenwashing. The prime sponsor has requested that I refer this to the Judiciary Committee, and I spoke with Chairman Briggs of the Judiciary Committee, and he indicated he would be willing to accept it. So do we have a motion and a second to re-refer House Bill 783, which deals with the issue of greenwashing, to the Judiciary Committee? Rep. Rivera makes that motion, and Joe seconds. Is there any discussion on this re-referral? Okay, it has been moved and second. The motion is a re-referral, reporting the bill out of committee with a recommendation that it be referred to the Judiciary Committee. That's the motion. Evan, can you take the roll?
Vitale,
Yes.
Brown,
Designation, yes.
Fleming,
Designation, yes.
Owenstein,
Designation, yes.
Isaacson,
Designation, yes.
Kazim,
Designation, yes.
Aten,
Designation, yes.
Pielli, Rivera, Salisbury, Siegel,
Designation, yes.
Steele,
Designation, yes.
Takak,
Designation, yes.
Webster, Rader,
Yes,
Bashline,
yes, designation.
Day, Flick, James, Mahaffey, Pugh, Schmidt, Schaefer,
Designation, yes.
Stender, Twardzik,
Designation, yes.
Wentling,
Okay, the bill is reported out of committee with the recommendation it be re-referred to the Judiciary Committee. The next item is, we'll go a little out of order, taking the easier things first. House Bill 448 by Rep. Diamond. Do we have a motion and a second to take up House Bill 448 by Rep. Diamond? Chair Rader makes that motion, and Lois Schmidt. Lois Schmidt. You answer that one. Okay, so we have this bill. Let's get a brief explanation of the bill from Evan, and then perhaps if Rep. Diamond wanted to say a couple words, we'll entertain that before we move on. Evan, can you give us a brief explanation of this bill?
House Bill 448 allows DEP to release radon test results to previous property owners under certain circumstances.
Okay, Rep. Diamond, why don't you say what you'd like about your bill?
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Vitale and Chairman Rader, for bringing up House Bill 448. And members of the committee, radon is a colorless, odorless radioactive gas that occurs naturally from the breakdown of uranium in soil and rocks and enters homes through cracks in the foundation or other openings. It's very prevalent in Pennsylvania. As we continue to make people aware of the dangers it poses to overall health, having access to the information about, where it is in their home is imperative. Last fall, my office was contacted by a constituent dealing with undiagnosable health conditions in hopes that I would be able to, on her behalf, obtain radon for a home she used to own. To my surprise, this testing information is only available to the current homeowner, not previous homeowners. House Bill 448 simply amends the Radon Certification Act to allow a previous homeowner to obtain that data from the department for the time period for which they own that home so that they can work with their doctors and maybe come to a resolution on the diagnosis of whatever health condition they may have. So this is a common sense bill and doesn't impact any current homeowners, any previous homeowners, and I would ask for your support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, is there any discussion on this bill? Okay, Rep. Salisbury?
I just had a question. How would the previous homeowners be notified? Do they have to proactively do something, or is it just permitting DEP at their own discretion to contact them?
The data is held by, maybe I'm not understanding your question. The data is currently held by the department. So it would just be a request by the previous homeowner to the department, can I have the data for the period where I was the owner of record? And any other homeowners probably won't even be impacted by this. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Rep. Day?
And Russ, is this just homeowners, not tenants, if they can prove residency or anything like that?
I think you would have to confer with staff on whether whether the language of bill would actually cover tenants or not, because that might be an important thing that we could do as a
Russ, I think the bill says homeowner, so. I would
okay,
think-
property owners, yeah.
Thanks, Russ, appreciate it.
Okay, any other questions or discussion on the bill? Okay, seeing none, Evan, can you take the roll?
Kelly,
Yes.
Brown,
Designation yes.
Fleming,
Designation yes.
Hohenstein,
Designation yes.
Isaacson,
Designation yes.
Kazim,
Designation yes.
Otten,
Designation yes.
Pielli, Rivera, Salisbury, Siegel,
Designation yes.
Steele, Takak,
Designation yes.
Webster, Rader,
Yes.
Bashline,
Designation yes.
Day, Flick, James, Mahaffey, Pugh, Schmidt, Schaefer,
Designation yes.
Stender, Twardzik,
Designation yes.
Wentling.
Okay, the bill is reported out of committee. Thank you. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question over here.
Oh, yes, Lee.
Just real simple. Evan, can you use the speaker when you're, because I couldn't hear the description of the bill.
That could be partially my fault. I'm kind of hogging it up here.
Thank you.
Okay, okay, right. So next item we'll take up is House Resolution 43 by Rep. 53. I'm sorry, House Resolution 53 by Rep. Mirsky, a resolution dealing with a study relating to the Chesapeake Bay and renewable energy. Evan, could you give a brief explanation of the bill, resolution rather?
House Resolution 53 provides for a study on renewable energy development on Lake Erie.
Okay, Rep. Mirsky, would you like to expand on that a little bit?
Thank you, Chair Vitale, Chair Rader, and the members of the House Environmental and Natural Resources Committee. Thank you for your consideration of House Resolution 53 and for allowing me this opportunity for some remarks on the legislation. This resolution would direct the Joint State Government Commission to conduct a study and issue a report regarding the feasibility and potential benefits and drawbacks of developing hydropower, solar, and wind energy generation systems on Pennsylvania's portion of Lake Erie. I do want to note that I originally had the Legislative Budget and Finance Committee as the state entity to direct the study, to conduct the study. However, after meeting with the director of the LBFC to discuss the legislation, it was determined that the Joint State Government Commission was better equipped to perform such a study, and that change is reflected in the text of H.R. 53. Because they are existing commission, the cost would be de minimis because they're already budgeted in the budget. The reason for H.R. 53 stems from a bill that I introduced last session, House Bill 254, that was modeled after former Representative Kurt Sonny's legislation. House Bill 254 provided for the leasing of submerged lands in Lake Erie for offshore wind, solar, or kinetic energy generation and development. Among the feedback and constructive criticism that we got in response to the bill was that people were uncertain if these kind of projects would be viable on Lake Erie, and we didn't know the kind of impact that they would have on things such as bird habitat and aquatic life. I took that feedback to heart, and I worked with folks, stakeholders from all sides to come up with this study and hopefully get some answers to those important questions and to provide us as legislators with valuable information. Ultimately, the goal is to develop legislation that will help stimulate the growth of high-paying jobs in Pennsylvania in the energy sector while also advancing the Commonwealth's renewable energy production. However, if the study determines that Lake Erie is not the right place for these types of projects, we can move on in figuring out better locations for such endeavors. One of the things that we're doing right now, this is as an aside, this is already happening on Lake Erie, Harbor Creek Township. They have kinetic energy generation going on Lake Erie now. It's a study from an outfit out of California. And they set up turbines on Lake Erie, and as the waves come in, it's generating electricity. And this is a prototype to see if it can be replicated on our oceans and other waterways. So this is already going on in my district as a prototype, and I want to make sure that Pennsylvania, A, that we're recapturing some revenue from it, and B, that if we're going to do this, that we're following all of the proper procedures and making sure that we're doing it properly. So it's not just wind energy. I know the big focus has always been on the windmills. It's also solar generation and kinetic energy. One of the things too that emerging technology is taking barges and just letting them sit out on Lake Erie. Already we have Erie Sand and Gravel out there who collects the sand and the gravel. They go out during the day, suck up all the gravel, and then bring it in. The barges would go out and just sit in the sun, generate electricity into batteries, and then they'd come back in at the end of the day. This is emerging technology. So these are some of the things that we would have them study. Either way, whatever the study goes, I don't think we can go wrong with finding out more information, and we can use that to guide our decisions. And I respectfully ask for your support of House Resolution 53. Thank you for your time.
Okay, do we have a motion and a second to take up House Resolution 53? Mary and Mandy would be our first and second. So any questions, comments, discussion? Chair Rader?
I just have, I can understand why you'd want to do this. I just have some concerns. I know Pennsylvania only owns a small portion of Lake Erie. I don't know how effective it would be because of our limited amount of Lake Erie we actually own, but I think there'd be concerns about outdoor recreation, shipping, and tourism. And I think a lot of people, in talking to some of the reps that I know, aren't very happy with what might develop from the study. So for those reasons, I would ask for a no. But I understand what you're trying to do, but I think there are too many concerns that I would have even with a study. So I'd ask for a no. Thank you.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I know it's small, but these are hundreds of thousands of acres. It's not that small. So you have almost 50 miles wide, and what it was envisioned by Representative Sonny, who I inherited this bill from when he retired, was offshore. These would not be close to the land. They would not affect Presque Isle State Park. I've met with Presque Isle State Park Advisory Committee. I've met with groups like the Sons of Lake Erie, who deal with fishing. We've met with the Audubon Society. That was the whole point of studying, is to make sure that all of the stakeholders are okay with anything moving forward. Now, let's not be mistaken. If the governor decides to do this tomorrow, he could do it without our blessing, and then we get nothing. And so I think it's important that we study to make sure that we have all of our T's crossed and our I's dotted, and that we're getting the best deal for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and that the legislature has a stake in it and a say in it.
I can understand what you're talking about, and if the governor did it tomorrow, I'd still be opposed to it. But I understand there's a lot of opposition to it up in that area, and for those reasons, I would be trying to protect those people that I've heard that are opposed to it. So I'll still stand by my no.
Okay, Rep. Steele?
Thank you, Chair. I'm excited about reading the results of this study because in my own district, which lies entirely along the Allegheny River, there's a lot of interest in generating power through the river, specifically with new technologies that's essentially turbines that are deep in the river, and then the motion of the water spins those turbines and you can generate electricity that way. We also have a lot of muskie fishing in that stretch of the Allegheny. And so figuring out the balance between recreation and energy generation is really important. And from everything that I've read, it is certainly doable. And this study is going to yield really useful information that we can apply across the Commonwealth. Thank you.
Okay, Rep. Salisbury?
So as you know, Representative, I am from your area and my family lives in your district. When I was in middle school and high school, I was fortunate to have the opportunity to do studies, not this level of study, but studies on Lake Erie. Edinburgh, Mercyhurst, Gannon would bring students together from the middle school and high school level and teach us how to perform environmental impact studies on the lake. We counted zebra mussels and assessed contamination from industrial runoff from previous generations. So as somebody who took part in a study of Lake Erie, I'm very pro studying what we can get out of this. I think that there is no benefit in keeping valuable information from people. So if there is a way that the lake can be productive beyond the ways that it has been already. We know that it is a tourism asset. We know that it is a transportation asset. We know that it has so many benefits to the community up there. And I think that if it has an opportunity to provide valuable energy production, we need to know about it, because you can't make good decisions unless you have good information. So I thank you for this, and I'll absolutely be supporting it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Evan, would you take the roll?
Vitale,
Yes.
Brown,
Designation, yes.
Fleming,
Designation, yes.
Hohenstein,
Designation, yes.
Isaacson, Kazim,
Designation, yes.
Otten,
Designation, yes.
Pielli, Rivera, Salisbury, Siegel,
Designation, yes.
Steele, Takak,
Designation, yes.
Webster, Rader,
No.
Bashline,
Designation, no.
Day, Flick, James, Mahaffey, Pugh, Schmidt, Schaefer,
Designation, no.
Stender, Twardzik,
Designation, no.
Wentling.
Okay, the bill passes and will be reported out of committee. Next on the agenda is House Bill 441 by Rep. Pielli. Evan, would you give a brief explanation of that bill?
House Bill 441 provides for the conservation and protection of wild native terrestrial invertebrates in Pennsylvania.
Okay, maybe before I forget, we'll do a motion and a second. Mandy would be our motion and Mary would be our second here. Rep. Pielli, would you like to give a brief explanation of your bill? And
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for my colleagues considering this bill. House Bill 441 would amend the Wild Resource Conservation Act of 1982 to give Pennsylvania's DCNR clear and specific authority over terrestrial insects. Might ask why we need to do this. Pennsylvania's environment relies heavily on insects, including 77 endangered insect species. Pollinators in particular, such as the bumblebee and the monarch butterfly, are in decline across the country and in Pennsylvania, threatening the health balance of our ecosystems. For example, since the 1990s, the population of monarch butterflies in North America has declined by 90%. They're now an endangered species. Without insects and pollinators like the monarch butterfly, flowers and crops cannot survive. To ensure human welfare, we must protect them. Some statistics: invertebrates such as bees and butterflies are at the heart of a healthy environment. Invertebrates pollinate most flowering plants, including many of the fruits, the vegetables, the nuts, and the seeds that both humans and wildlife depend on. The vast majority of birds, fish, freshwater fish, and other mammals, small mammals, use invertebrates as food. It's their main source of food. Invertebrates also help clean up plant, animal, and human waste, and they support food production by controlling pests. One study that I have seen is that they actually contributed $70 billion a year to the U.S. economy, $250 million for the pollinator project in Pennsylvania, the economic benefits for our crops. So when we look at our title, House Environment and Natural Resource Protection Committee, this is a natural resource we need to protect. Now, back in the 90s, the Conservation and Natural Resource Act, Section 305A, has powers and duties enumerated, and the DCNR was given the power. The department shall have the power and its duty, and shall be with respect to the study and the protection of the Commonwealth's ecological and geological resources, but specifically, they never included invertebrates. So what this bill is doing, specifically including invertebrates in that, and why that's important, without HB 441, without that ability for the DCNR to clearly have that authority, there's a lot of things we're missing out on compared to other states who do have that listed. There's funding, for example, the Cooperative Endangered Species Conservation Fund supports state programs to conserve federally listed species or candidate species that are under consideration for listing. There's the Recovery Lands Acquisition Program, which helps states acquire lands from willing landowners to protect federally listed species. Sometimes protecting habitat is the easiest way to help these species. There's also Conservation Planning Assistance Grant Program. Again, without us having this listed, we have to rely solely on the federal EPA, and we cannot act on our own, and we cannot initiate the process. We have to wait. So I'd like your support on this, so that we could join other states and protect this very valuable natural resource for Pennsylvania. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Rep. Pielli. Any discussion? Okay, Lee?
Thank you for that description, Representative. Can you formulate an idea of an action, a preventive action that DCNR might take, for instance, because I'm all for birds, bats, bees, and butterflies. I got that part covered. But if my neighbor over here starts killing all my butterflies, what can be done about that?
Well, I would just refer to the DCNR, what they actually do with other fauna and other wildlife, whatever actions that they're capable of doing presently for that, they are unable to do for invertebrates.
I don't think they can do anything, which is my problem with the bill, not the fact that I support butterflies.
Well, at the very least, they could list as endangered species and get funding to protect an endangered species, which they have done in the past for various mammals or fauna or whatever.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, Mandy?
I think if they, DCNR can study invertebrates through this legislation, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so in particular, there's an invasive insect that is potentially going to be a massive problem for us here, which is the jumping worm, the snake worm, the Asian worm. It has 3 names right now, which is from Asia. It lives in the very top layer of soil, and it eats leaf litter and is reproducing in a huge way, really fast. And so they're creating these huge areas of desert because they eat the leaf litter, the oaks and other native trees. The little saplings don't grow up. So there are these huge areas of desert in Pennsylvania forests, potentially a massive problem. They're only killed by droughts. We don't have a ton of drought here. So we need DCNR to study this worm before the problem gets out of hand for farmers and for Pennsylvania's forests. Thank you, Rep. Pielli, for introducing this.
Okay, further, Chair Rader?
Yes, I know the federal government can already do this, so if we have issues, I think the feds can handle that. I'm also for smaller government. We give the DCNR or DEP, whoever DCNR that we're doing with this one, we give them the right to do something. How far are they going to take that? Because a lot of times we give them the right to do things and they go way over here and we go, well, how did that happen? Well, we gave them a right to do it. So I'm a little concerned about where they might take this without knowing where they might. And I'm with you, Lee. I think, we've had how many trees of different types of trees have died because insects or different things have come in, and I ask conservationists or different people, what can we do about it? And there's nothing. So and a lot of these issues, I think there isn't much we can do anyway, but I'm a little concerned about what it might lead to. If I knew, the structure of what we're giving DCNR the ability to do, I would be a little less concerned, but I'm a little concerned about that.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
To answer your question, I mean, we could say that argument about any Pennsylvania department. I mean, because the federal government has departments that would overlap, but they're not necessarily, federal government not necessarily is going to be focusing Pennsylvania-centric issues. One of the things that this bill will do is help permit interagency coordination with insect conservation issues such as, the highway management or light pollution. Some of our agencies are already doing this for aquatic invertebrates, for example, fish, boat and fish, wildlife, they're doing it. Forestry is doing certain things. And this is just providing specific language because there seems to be some hesitancy from the DCNR, despite the Conservation Act that I read before. It's already, in my opinion, a duty of theirs. They need specific language to be able to complete this. It's important. It's our natural resource. The federal government, especially these days, we don't know how much we can rely on the federal government for Pennsylvania-centric issues. So I think it's important that we maintain our integrity for our departments and support them as much as we can and protect our natural resources as best as we can. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If I could respond to that. since
Sure,
he
sure.
responded- he
The
responded
questions
to
are
me.
starting to build, but sure,
Yeah.
sure. Go.
Well, you mentioned something that is one of the reasons I'm afraid about what limits an agency may take if they have the power. You said light pollution. Well, that's really a township issue, a borough issue. They shouldn't be impinging on that right. So I think every township, every borough, every district, conservation district, a county has a right for their own rules and regulations. And if we open it up, where this is open, I have no idea what this would lead to. If I knew what it would lead to, maybe I could support it, but we're giving them the right to do something. I don't know what that might lead to. That's my concern.
Okay, Rep. Pugh?
Yes, my concern is also the blanket over the top of giving DCNR the authority to do it. We have the spotted lanternfly, who we all know went through the state and is still going through the state and destroying it, yet we were able to bring down the rules on that, and the rules that implemented on that really hurt our small businesses and the extra labors and stuff that they have to do and the time that they have to do to the inspections of their vehicles when we've got regular residents just driving up and down the same roads that our small businesses are driving up and down. So just because of the blanket of letting them just decide what they want to do, I feel that we've already got something in place like we did for the spotted lanternfly that came up through here.
Okay, well, thank, any other, okay, Rep. Salisbury, then Rep. Rivera, then Rep. Day.
So I already support pollinators. I run a pollinator park in my own district that I put in place when I was a borough council member. It is the leading cause of me putting my back out. But I will say that on a statewide level, I'm kind of surprised that people would prefer to relegate this effort to the federal government when I think really we have state-specific issues. We certainly look at regional animal populations. We have regional native flora and fauna in Pennsylvania, and we're often told in this building that agriculture is our top industry in Pennsylvania. I come from a family where half of my family was in agriculture. We had dairy farms and various other crops and things before, those things weren't always economically successful, and the banks own them now. But in my family, we have a tradition of focusing on agriculture. And when we have large monocrop systems, and we're looking at trying to bring back heirloom crops, we're looking at trying to bring back things that are native to our areas, because those are more profitable for our state's farmers than growing number 2 seed corn, for instance, or feed corn. When we look at bringing back heirloom crops, we also have to be aware of which insects are important to pollinating those crops. So for instance, if we want to have someone who grows pawpaws, which would be a high yield crop for Pennsylvanians that is native to this area, there's really one butterfly, a swallowtail butterfly, that lives on there and pollinates that. If in Pennsylvania we do not have our own comprehensive understanding of our own agriculture system, if we leave that to big government, if we leave that to the federal government instead of taking charge of it at the state level, which is where I think it's more appropriately done, I think that we are doing a disservice to our farmers by not keeping track of things that could hurt their crops.
Okay, and I'll just be great if we could get the agenda done and not have to come back later this afternoon. So I'm just going to ask members to kind of be concise in their thoughts and questions. Nikki?
Well, as the newbie here, I just wanted to talk about how Pennsylvania is on the path of migration for a lot of these pollinators, and to be the state that cuts it off when it could be researched. I'm not opposed to more information about it too. This seems like a very small thing to add to a Section 305A. It doesn't seem like a big brand new category. It's a little addition to what's already being being studied, and now it's just specified. Monarch butterflies spend their winters in Mexico, travel up to Canada, and die off every 22 days. And we're part of that process. So making sure that Pennsylvania stays part of that process and doesn't become the agitator in the situation, I'd prefer we do that on a state-to-state basis, too.
Thank you. Rep. Day?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Was there, is there any information about how much more this will take as far as staff or resources or anything like that? Financial impact or anything like that?
There hasn't been a study. There isn't an ask for any additional funding. There is an ask for definition, clear defining of duties at this point. I will tell you that the DCNR does not oppose this bill.
Okay.
So I think just for the future, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate if we would have that information available when we're making the decision. Many times, we think that we can just add another responsibility to a department, as our minority chair had talked about, increasing the size. That's more specific to my concern with increasing the size of responsibilities with the state government and the cost of it. Manpower. It'd be legitimate for the department to come back to us, say, you wanted this done, we need the people to do it. So that would be helpful for me in the future as we're considering legislation. When I look at what this does, and we do have a vehicle to do this already, I'm certainly sympathetic to the ability to request federal funds or other grant funds to address things, and I think that's a positive for this piece of legislation. But I think Representative Pugh talked about just balancing the positives and negatives, and right now, I'm not inclined to support this legislation because I don't think we took care of all those things. But to my colleague, I appreciate what my colleague's trying to do. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, yeah, if you could just be concise, that would be great.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, are we going to the right department here? Should we not be going to the Department of Ag rather than DCNR? That's just a question I have. Thank you.
It's a good question, Representative Mahaffey, but as I stated before, when you look at the Conservation and Natural Resources Act in Section 305, and it lists the powers, and the powers and duties enumerated, the department shall have the power, and its duty shall be with respect to the study and the protection of the Commonwealth's ecological and geological resources. Now, this bill would only help work with the agriculture. And I'm glad you mentioned about the agriculture, because the Pennsylvania Growers Association has said that we're looking at $250 million benefit of insects and pollinations for their crops. So I'm sure there's something that would coordinate it, but specifically I think the DCNR is the best agency to do this, and in my opinion, always had this responsibility and is actually doing it too, like the Bureau of Forestry, for example. They're conducting studies because of this. And so to answer your question, I would say the DCNR.
Okay, great. Evan, could you call the roll?
Vitale,
Yes.
Brown,
Designation yes.
Fleming,
Designation yes.
Hohenstein. Yes. Isaacson, Kazim,
Designation yes.
Otten,
Designation yes.
Pielli,
Yes.
Rivera. Yes. Salisbury,
Yes.
Siegel,
Designation yes.
Steele, Takak,
Designation yes.
Webster,
Designation yes.
Rader,
No.
Bashline,
Designation no.
Day, Flick, James, Mahaffey, Pugh, Schmidt, Schaefer,
Designation no.
Stender, Twardzik, Wentling.
Okay, well, the bill is reported out of committee. Our final item of today is House Bill 789 by Rep. Cerisi. Do we have a motion and a second? Abby, would you so move, and then Mary will second. Evan, could you give a brief explanation of that bill? And Rep. Cerisi, why don't you come on up?
House Bill 789 expands the CPACE program by adding electric vehicle charging infrastructure as an eligible project type.
Yeah, and I will note that this bill passed the House last session with bipartisan support. Rep. Cerisi, would you like to say some things about your bill?
Thank you, Chairman Vitale and Chairman Rader. Thank you for saving the best for last, and you'll find it electrifying.
We just want to keep you waiting, Joe, that's all.
I know. I sat there through all that. I learned a lot about the insects. Anyway, back at the ranch. So my bill deals with the opportunity to add charging stations across the Commonwealth. And as we've seen a growth in more electric vehicles, and recently on the national level, we saw a major ad for more electric vehicles, I think it's important for us to make sure that we have charging stations and the availability for those who choose to have an electric vehicle and a place to charge it in the state of Pennsylvania. This bill also has the opportunity to allow people to come from outside the state and feel comfortable while they're here and have the ability to charge their electric vehicles and visit our state, especially as we head into 2026. We'll have visitors from all over the country, and not only the Commonwealth, who will be traveling here in all different sorts of vehicles. There is no cost to the taxpayer. We've seen this happen in multiple states. A couple of examples of Florida and Utah have done this with their infrastructure, and it definitely will give us the opportunity to allow private business to have an opportunity to put these in at houses, at apartment complexes, at businesses, and have their people who have electric vehicles feel more comfortable that they can charge their vehicle. That's about it.
Okay, I stand corrected. This passed the House last term, but it was along party lines. So, okay, just so everyone understands that. Any questions or discussions? Chair Rader?
I'm against it because it's Representative Cerisi bill. That's one of the reasons, but I have other reasons too. I think they're being installed anyway, Representative. It's happening. I know the feds put a whole bunch of money into it. It can be done privately. I think there are other ways of doing it. So I would let it play out the way the market lets it play out. And I think I don't hear of disasters happening right now where people can't electrify their cars. So I'm against it for those reasons, but thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments? Rep. Day?
Sorry, I'm back and I've got a lot to say, I guess, and maybe I'll get back to the status of not having so much to say. So,
okay.
I think the private sector has taken care of this. In particular, the Tesla Corporation has quite a few charging stations all over the Commonwealth. I've noticed that since I was away, we taxed people with EVs to make sure they're paying their fair share. Now we're going to take that money and redistribute it to people who the market's not going to bear where this is. It's going to be some bureaucrat, because it does say apply for grants in here, right? So I just think it's important to talk about, as somebody with 2 electric vehicles, always, every time I leave the house, making that decision, where are those chargers? If I go up and down the East Coast, I have to do that. And making that decision, I think, is there already, and is, the system is not in need of government subsidies. So I appreciate what you're doing. I'm in the space, so I appreciate that you're interested in the space. I just don't think this is the way to do it. So thank you so much.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? Joe, did you have a?
No, I mean, I understand that this is a program that's already out there that we're just allowing the electric vehicles to tap into. And it will move it a little faster for these electric vehicles to be able to have additional charging stations. And I think we're seeing a growth, whether we want to or not, whether you feel in favor of it or not, in electric vehicles or even in the hybrid electric vehicle that's a plug-in.
Okay, very good. Further discussion? Okay. Rep. Salisbury?
Somehow I've spoken more in this meeting than I have the entire first term I was in office. So I was part of putting in electric vehicle charging stations in my municipality. as a borough council member, we were able to put in 4 for people. One thing that I think people often overlook about why we need to provide some government assistance for these implementations is that not everybody lives in a suburban home with a garage where they can plug in their car. I live in a 1923 neighborhood, and people mostly don't have any garages because a lot of people just didn't own cars when their homes were built. So if we don't have some sort of infrastructure to create a collective charging station network, then I think there often is this assumption that everybody just pulls into their garage, plugs in their car, and then you're good to go. I don't personally own an electric vehicle, but from speaking to people, that is a request that I've had many times because people in some areas just don't have anywhere to plug in their vehicle. And our fire department was very concerned that people were going to drape a cord across their front lawn and create some sort of a huge fire hazard that would be difficult to put out because of the nature of some of these batteries and what they're made of. So I just think it's important to keep in mind that a lot of people have no ability to charge an electric car where they live.
Okay, thank you. Any further thoughts or questions? Evan, could you take the roll?
Vitale,
Yes.
Brown,
Designation yes.
Fleming,
Designation yes.
Hohenstein. Yes. Isaacson, Kazim,
Designation yes.
Aten,
Designation yes.
Pielli. Yes. Rivera. Yes. Salisbury. Siegel,
Designation yes.
Steele, Takak,
Designation yes.
Webster,
Designation yes.
Rader,
No.
Bashline,
Designation no.
Day, Flick, James, Mahaffey, Pugh, Schmidt, Schaefer,
Designation no.
Stenger, Wardzik, Wentling.
Okay, the bill has sufficient votes and is reported out of committee. That concludes our agenda for today. Chair Rader, did you have any final thoughts or comments?
No, I think it went the way I thought it was going to go, and maybe next time we'll get a few more yeses here.
Yeah, life in the minority. This meeting is adjourned.